this on? My name is Kelly Below. I live at 1026 Pacific Avenue in Waukegan. On November 28, 2006, members of this board voted to hire the spouse of a fellow board member. This vote was a bit controversial, and according to an article on conflicts of interest from the July 1998 edition of the Illinois School Board Journal, avoid all appearance of conflict. The state of Illinois has made it very clear that it does not desire to have any public official, including members of boards of education, abuse his or her official capacity in such a way as to gain a personal benefit. Since bad faith intent is not necessary to violate these statutory provisions, board members must be certain to disclose during public deliberation any direct or indirect conflict that may be present. Moreover, the members should abstain not only from further deliberation, but from the final vote as well. It is important that documentation of the disclosure be recorded in the minutes of the Board of Education. Remember, the spirit of the law is not only to stop actual abuse, but to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. The only person who gave the public any indication about this potential conflict of interest was Mrs. June McGuire. When it came time to vote on personnel items, Mrs. McGuire attempted to pull the controversial hiring out of the consent agenda for separate consideration. Mrs. Hanna quickly cut her off, and this board would not grant Mrs. McGuire's request to pull out this hiring for a separate vote. This same courtesy has been extended to board members in the past. Why couldn't it be extended to Mrs. McGuire? In fact, on November 14, when there were only 5 board members present, only 4 of whom could have voted on this issue, the very same item was pulled out of the consent agenda. No explanation was given to the public at that time either. The book, Coming to Order, published by the Illinois Association of School Boards, gives very firm guidance for handling the consent agenda. A portion of the agenda may be designated for consent agenda items. The consent grouping on the agenda will also be used for those items that do not require board discussion. It may also include items for which the law requires board action, but which the board rightfully delegates to the staff. In order to comply with the Open Meetings Act's mandates that minutes contain a summary of discussion on all matters proposed, deliberated, or decided, the board should announce or provide copies of each item on the consent agenda before voting on it. It goes on to list some of these things, bills, hirings, payroll. Some items that might appear on the consent agenda at one time may not be appropriate at another time, depending upon previous discussions and other factors. Moreover, certain items that appear routine may, in fact, deserve separate treatment. Examples might include the letting of an extremely large contract for construction or the approval of a negotiated agreement with the teachers' union. In any case, board policy should allow any member to remove items from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. This is from the Illinois Association of School Boards. This point is emphasized again on page 8 in the short article titled The Mechanics of Consent. Typically, the board establishes in its policies the kinds of items that should or should not go on the consent agenda. Prior to each meeting, the board president and superintendent can jointly determine which items will go on the consent agenda based on the policy. It is essential, however, that any member of the board be allowed to remove any item from the consent list any time before they vote to approve. In addition, I appreciate the information given to me by Mr. Howard explaining about the prorated salaries that have been listed since November 1. In the future, I just ask that when we change things like that, that you just let us know, because there was a bit of confusion in the community. Thank you.
And Robert P. Evans, Sr.